Well. Good afternoon, West Ham fans. Let's talk about the Yes, everybody, Russ and the West Ham Network. Hope you're all safe and well. Hope your Thursday is going well. We've still got a week and a bit until West Ham ruin it by playing a game of football. If you're new around here, and like we do, don't forget to like, comment, share, all that good stuff. So, to be honest, I mean, the international breaks are really annoying for some things, but really good in a weird way because it gives us time to reflect and look back and do some look at some stats. You know me, I love my stats. And actually, one of the things I've been wanting to look at a long time is academies, is the academy, is understanding, a bit more about looking at what, who's been brought through and yada, 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 that type of thing. And this is not, I should put a what, this is not a Moyes debate. I'm not talking about David Moyes at the moment. There will be references to David Moyes, no doubt. But I will not be talking today about David Moyes in this as such, because the narrative. So the narrative is that David, for both sides of the argument in terms of David Moyes, let's just get out of the way because you're going to be talking about the academy and stuff. That he's from a numbers perspective. We have, the Moyes, the pro Moyes debate would say that he has given, more first team debuts to academy players than any other West Ham manager in Premier League history, which it's true. However, the flip side is he's only given one Premier League debut so only one of those 20 or so players that he's given debuts to has been in the Premier League, and that was Jeremy Ngakia against Liverpool randomly. Do you remember he played right back? He was absolutely brilliant, actually. And so and people will go, oh, he's not giving you for chance. He's not giving you for chance. Or some people say, oh, he's giving you for chance. But actually, they're not making their debuts in the Premier League. They're making a debut, cutting their teeth in the cup competitions, which is, potentially the idea of the cup competitions. But, it's about getting into the Premier League and making Premier League appearances. Looking back at it, since we've got back into the Premier League in 2012, we've given 49 first team debuts to academy players. I may well have missed one or two potentially, but when I was going through my list, 49. So that's under obviously, the likes of obviously Big Sam and Slav and Pellegrini and Moisey as well. However, 3 of them were in the Premier League. Ironically, 3, literally bang, bang, bang. Xander Silva randomly in the Premier League. It's Burnley, I think. Ben Johnson and Jeremy Ngakia. The rest were in cup competitions, whether that be European qualifications. So particularly under Slav, a number of those kids were dropped in during the European qualifications. It could be FA Cup, UEFA, it could be League Cups, or as you said, as we assumed, with that great game against Zagreb where we had 6 or 7 on the pitch by the end. A big, people like it Ongella. And actually, if you look down that line, you've got Manuel Ongella. He went to Birmingham, didn't he? Baptiste, he left, but City was training at, wasn't he? Freddie Potts is still here. Sonny Perkins, he's gone, and then he went to Leeds and then went on loan. Alase's gone as well. Obviously went to Sunderland. Is Forson still around? I don't know. I can't remember, to be honest. But yeah, so it doesn't make good reading. But is it just a West Ham thing, or or is it a Premier League wide thing? That's what I wanted to look at. Is it our academy that's faltering, or is it the Premier League as a whole, and I think it's the Premier League as a whole. I'll be honest, I think it is. So again, this is not a pro Moyes or pro or anti Moyes debate. This is a anti Premier League debate, because actually, I think we're giving kids a real disservice in terms of, there's a whole generation now of youngsters who aren't going to be pushed into the Premier League limelight in terms of their clubs. You look at someone like Jude Bellingham, for example, classic example at Birmingham. He may have got picked up by a Premier League side and maybe played a few games here or there, but he went to Dortmund, made a name for himself, went to Real Madrid, and he's probably one of their best signings ever based on his current trajectory in terms of the games to goals ratio he has at the moment. Absolutely smashing it out there. Would that have happened if he stayed in the Premier League? Probably not. And that is the benefit of England, because now he's the main man for England. Same as someone like Declan Rice as well. Declan Rice is an exception to the rule. He's come from the academy, and West Ham. Obviously, he was done by Chelsea as a sort of middle-aged teenager, so to speak. Came to West Ham, and obviously then has gone to Arsenal. And for 100 million, thank you very much, the Gooners. So it's really interesting. Someone like Josh Cullen as well is a classic example. He sort of was released by West Ham. Went to, for example, Anderlecht, a fate appointment by chance appointment, so to speak, in terms of Vincent Kompany going to Burnley, bringing him with him, and then getting promoted. So now he's a Premier League player, and we welcome him back very, very in a few weeks' time. Well, actually, we're going to Burnley, but we're welcome back, obviously, London Stadium, big West Ham fan as well. We've got the whole situation with Divine Mbama at the moment as well. And the narrative was that he wasn't the original narrative when Roshane put the tweet out that he'd rejected the last contract was because, and everyone, it's because of lack of game time. Conversations have been going for at least the last 12 months, according to WHU employee. And so, he was picking up minutes in the Europa League, in the conference leagues and stuff. He scored, that goal and stuff. So it wasn't that. It was more around sort of the wage, the team and the wage structure. He obviously got new agents. By all accounts, according to X, the club absolutely wanted to stay, but they've got a strict wage policy, particularly with youth team players. And it must be said that Declan Rice played many, many games for a club on a youth wage, earning his right to seek higher wages later in his career, something which I think is often forgot. West Ham have put on the table an amazing offer, although this is from the club side. Now, clearly, the Mbama camp doesn't feel that way. Otherwise, it would have been signed already. So, obviously, the agents are negotiating more money. So, again, agents get into the game. But again, let's go back and look at the Premier League as a whole. What I did was I took 2 game weeks. I took the last game week, and also I took the game week beforehand, just in case there was any biasness in terms of European games or internationals, players being rested and things like that. And so, putting more sort of youth team players in there. And across the 220 players, so looking just at the starting 11s, not necessarily looking at the benches, because someone can get over 2 minutes and means fuck all, really. That's how many academy players were in the starting 11. So out of 220, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in game week 12, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 in game week 11. So, an average of 10, say, just those 2. But that's less than 5%. So less than 5% of the players who started in the Premier League in the last 2 game weeks have been academy players. And by that, I'm saying pure academy players. So someone like Johnny Evans wouldn't count for Man United. Someone like Jay Rodriguez wouldn't count for Burnley because they've been away and come back, really. So it's basically it's the younger players coming in. And I put a star by the Man United one because Garnacho, he was signed from Athletic Madrid at the age of about 17 or so. So academy, he hasn't come through the ranks, so to speak, but that's why I just put initial asterisks, because someone said, well, actually, Garnacho, so I've already made that alluded to. So that doesn't make good reading, does it? It doesn't make good reading, particularly going into the thinking about internationals and stuff like that. We can go through that. You've got what's say Newcastle, Longstaff, and a guy called, is it Miley? Last week, Chelsea, you got Reece James, Conor Gallagher, you got Phil Foden, Trent Alexander-Arnold, you've got Tyrick Mitchell, and for Arsenal, Saka. So it's sort of the same ones. And then again, for the previous week, I think they're almost exactly the same, but with Brighton, Lewis Dunk. he's been there since joining the club as a youth team player. But I thought, okay, looking at those numbers doesn't make good reading, does it? Doesn't make good reading in terms of the Premier League as a whole, in terms of developing players. And there's plenty of reasons for it. We're talking about money, we're talking about experience, we're talking about, pressure on managers to get points, and it is a results-based business, so there's less likely to, tried and trusted players. But also, we've spoken several times of the likes of Patsy Holland, who's still very much involved in the youth game. I think he's scouting for Arsenal at the moment. Timmy Breaker as well, and also the likes of, I've spoken to the likes of Kevin Keane and Mark Phillips and Kenny Brown, and obviously, really associated with the academy. And it does seem that people want results now. They want results now. You're going to get exceptions to the rule. You're going to get people like, we had Joe Cole on the channel a couple of weeks ago. He wasn't sent out alone. Literally, the age of 16, put straight in there. And you do get those occasionally, where they could put a number of players in and develop them, but that's not a case now. And something that Tim said, which always resonated with me, he says, yeah, you can spend ages bringing a kid up from 13, 14, all the way up into the first team. But you could go and buy someone from France who's already got 50, 60 games, who's the same age under his belt, who's already experienced in playing first team football. And I thought, was that the case? Is that the case? So I looked at game week 11. And actually, no, it's not 9, it's 9. But if you look at the Premier League, it's 9, not 7. Is it 9 or 7? I can't remember. Let's go back. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's 9. It's 9, not 7. But regardless of that, twice as many players were academy players in Liga that game week compared to the Premier League. Now, that's startling for me. And actually, to be honest, a side like I reckon Nantes probably accounts, when I was looking through it, probably accounts about 10, 15, maybe 20% of all the players. It's ridiculous how many players that Nantes have brought through who have gone to play in the La Liga for various clubs. But 18. And considering the fact that there's less clubs in the league as well, the percentage is obviously greater, It's much bigger because there's less clubs, 18 clubs rather than 20 clubs. So in essence, on average, one in each side is an academy player compared to, one in every other, pretty much, which is crazy. So when you look at how the French league have developed, and in terms of getting in terms of bringing through these fantastic young players, it's not surprising, because it seems to be set up to encourage the youth and to encourage academies to develop players into the first team. It might be a factor of money. It probably is a factor of money. The fact is, the Premier League is so rich, they can go out and cherry pick these players, the best players around the world. They don't need to necessarily bring through the academy players. So from a Premier, and so you've got the Premier League side, and then you've got as a nation as well. We need to develop these players, get them into the first team, get them playing decent football, regular football, in order to then improve our national side as well. So the likes of the French national side, they'll always have a good side because of how it's set up. But going back to the Premier League, so 9 players, let's take game week 11, 9 players out of all 220 were academy players in terms of the starting lineup. I thought, okay, well, clearly it's, there's a disparity between other nations and us. If you want me to go and look at, the Bundesliga, La Liga, let me know and I can do that as well. As well as the Portuguese Super League and stuff like that might be interesting as well. Let me know in the comments and I can do that as well. And also, start the narrative in the comments, because I think it's going to be really interesting. And give it a like, please. Thank you. I've done a lot of analysis. Mrs. Budden's obviously been very happy with me scrolling away looking at spreadsheets. Now, obviously, I thought, okay, well, let's have a look at it over time. So what I did was I took that game week 11 and I looked at 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, to see maybe if it's always been the case or not. And it's really surprising. Not that one. It's really surprising sort of figure. And so 15 years ago, 26 players were academy players. Then it's gone 20 in 13, 14, then 15 and 9. So literally you can see this decline of how it's happened. West Ham, for example, we had three, I think we had like 3 players who were academy players that week. This, in the one that happened in game week 11, we had none. We had none in the starting 11, as well as a good 2/3 of the Premier League didn't have any. The likes of Brighton didn't have any. The likes of, well, actually, Brighton had Lewis Dunk. The likes of Brentford, Villa, none of them had any youth team players or any academy players in their starting 11s. Now, what I think is quite interesting is this yellow line. In 2012, the Premier League decided to basically start what was, in essence, the PL2. So taking away, and we've spoken about this before, taking away the old combinations league, the old reserve setup, and making it very much a step up from the under 18s. So whether it's the 21s, the 23s, and yes, there can be the odd overage player, 1 or 2, I think, per starting 11. But regardless of that, from that point onwards, I think that was the decline of players in the Premier League in terms of coming through from the academy, which is scary when you look at it. I mean, now only 9 players have come through the academy, and obviously, granted, some of them, not all of them are English-based players. As I said, the likes of Garnacho. He's obviously he came through from Atletico Madrid, so obviously not an English-based player. But I think it's really awful. And actually, and then I thought, okay, let me look a bit deeper. And again, this is not the best looking slide in the world. I do apologise, but I want to get it all on one side. So we've got, this is as of this year in the Premier League. I don't know why I just put it on one line, but anyway, we've got all the Premier League sides. Then we've got how many players in terms of total game time. So I'm including substitution appearances and stuff like that as well now. How many players from the academy have featured in the Premier League for that side this year? And the next number is the total number. So Arsenal, 3 players have played in the Premier League. So that's Smith Rowe, Saka, and one more I can't think of it top of my head, which accounts for 20 games in total. So I think Saka's got like 12, 11. I think Emil Smith Rowe's got like 5. Looking down, Chelsea have a lot, but I think a lot of that was hangover from when they couldn't buy anyone, and they still spent over £1 billion in money. So obviously under Frank, they had the transfer embargo, so they couldn't necessarily bring in any players, and so they sort of very much relied on the youth to get them through it. City, you've got obviously Foden, you got Bob and Rico. Is it Rico as well? Yeah, I think Rico's was one as well. So there's so so obviously West Ham, one of them, same as Wolves, same as Luton, Burnley, Brentford, Bournemouth. We all talk about how great Brentford is, but they haven't brought through anyone in their academy. In fact, they haven't got an academy, I believe. So they can't bring anyone through. That's how much they value it. So what is the point of the academy now? It's like, it seems there's so much money in the game that they can go out and buy someone from Liga who's got, and again, I could probably go and find someone. I could probably go and have a look, but someone who's got, 50, 60, same age as someone else, who's got these games under their belt. It really does, to me, show that there's a real problem with the academy in terms of academies in general, in terms of developing players to make Premier League appearances, not being squad fillers or getting the odd minute here in the League Cups or in Europe in dead rubber games and things like that. It's about developing into the Premier League, because that's where the money's at, and actually that's could save people hundreds of millions of pounds. I mean, how much would Man City pay for Ben Foden? Phil Foden, for example, if he was a French or a Brazilian or Spanish based player, 50, 60, 70 million, I don't know. So, how much they've saved by bringing Foden in. It's clear there's a pathway, but I think the trouble is and the likes of, as I said, the likes of Patsy Holland, the likes of people who are in the game, they say the trouble is the way the youth setup is. Once you go into you go in the under-21s or the PL2 league, whatever they call it. Yes, you do play the Bristol City Motors Trophy, but regardless of that, that's 3 or 4 games. If you're lucky to, then you qualify and whatnot. But regardless of that, they're not physically ready to play a full season. Very rarely are they. And so, because whereas the old, reserve leagues, and we've had like people like Izzy Ickpen on, we've had Adam Newton, sort of youth team players who talk about the old combinations league in such high regard in terms of learning, developing, learning from the old pros. That side of the game, the physicality side, not the skill side. These guys are just as skillful, if not more skillful, than some of the senior players. But it's the physicality side. You see some players when they start, you go, he needs to bulk up a little bit. He's not physically ready. Someone like Callum Marshall, for example, fantastic player. I believe he's still PL2 top goal scorer, but he's I can't speak, but he's a bit of a skinny bloke. He doesn't get shoved about by some big defenders. That's why West Ham need to utilise the loan market in order to almost give these players the physical experience they need, not the skill, but the physical experience. So look at Freddie Potts. Freddie Potts is absolutely smashing it at Wickham at the moment. So much so they're calling him like the new Cesc Fabregas within the Wickham Wanderers, realm. That's what you need. A season of him being, having sort of tackles and hassle and bustle with sort of really experienced old school midfielders and defenders, and that's what you need. Same as someone like Callum. Callum goes to Huddersfield Town. He was linked with that in the summer. Big defenders knocking him out. Knocking shits of 6 pounds of hell out of him. That's going to improve. That's going to improve his physicality and be able to hold his own. You look at someone like Divine. Divine's different. I think Divine is a rarity in that physically he's ready for the games, but he's not getting the game time. If he does sign a new contract, he'll be probably going out alone in January, maybe to Watford. Ishmael Miller has already said he's interested to get him. Obviously, we won't send him out if he's not going to sign a new contract, because otherwise he's in his last year and he could fuck off afterwards. So that's what you need. That's what you need. But you only need that because of the way the setup is. If we still had the old reserve league, I think you'd see a lot more players come through. You would do. Because the managers would be more confident they're physically ready for the games, rather than necessarily, they see them on the pitch, you see them on training, you see them, in playing against their own age groups, and they look fantastic. We smashed the under 18 smashed it last year, and they could probably do a decent job. But maybe that's on a one-off in terms of the first team, but you don't know until you put them in there. But he doesn't want to put them in there because, for me, there's definitely a disparity between, getting from youth team football, being really good at youth team football, and being really good in the first team. And yes, there is a gamble needed. You need to give these guys a chance. But the trouble is, football is such a results-based business that you don't. That one bad move. I mean, we still talk about Sam Allardyce against Nottingham Forest. We still talk about him putting out all the kids for the Nottingham Forest game, getting trounced 5-1. I remember interviewing Sebastian Leggett, and he talked about the game. That ruined him. That ruined him as a player. And again, I suppose if you look through that list, the list of the players that we've given first team debuts for, where is it? If you look at that list, how many of them have actually made it, say, into the Premier League? Pelly Ruddock. I'm just looking down that list now. I'm still looking down that list. Declan Rice, obviously. Grady. We got relegated with Xander, with Jeremy already left. He was relegated. Is that it? I think that's 2. Well, technically, Harrison Ashby hasn't played in the Premier League yet. So, then they haven't developed at the same, they haven't, Reece Oxford or Reece Burke as well at Luton. Sebastian Leggett, obviously, in MLS. Elliot Lee, obviously, we know Wrexham. John Moncur he's been around, played at Orient and various others. Josh Cullen, obviously. We've got a lot of league of Championship players, League One, League Two, and various others as well, and some obviously still set up in the side as well. But I just found it really interesting, and I found it really sad actually. I found it really sad that across the board, not just the West Ham, but across the board, when the percentage of players coming into the Premier League is from the academy is a lot lower, and I think money's the main issue. But anyway, that's my brain dump. Hope you enjoyed it. Something a bit different. But let me know your comments. I know there'll be people going, we've got to give them chances and stuff like that. But let me know, because I think it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really sad, but I think it's really interesting as well. Anyway, we'll be back. I think Anton's doing Hammer's headlines later on. If you want any free beer, beer52.com/West Ham. Check it out. 8 exclusive beers. 8 exclusive beers. Craft beers, dark or light beer. For free, just got to cover the postage of £5.95, £6 basically. Get yourself 8 beers and help the channel out in that way as well. Take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble. Don't forget to give it a like. Really, really helps the channel. Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care, my friends, and have a great rest of your Thursday. Bye-bye.